Everybody loves lumpia, but here's the weird part. The most iconic Filipino party food didn't actually start in the Philippines. And somehow, that simple immigrant spring roll became so important to Filipino culture that family parties practically turn into survival games the second it hits the table. Seriously, 1 minute, everybody's calm. The next minute, somebody's cousin is guarding the lumpia tray like national treasure. But the lumpia Filipinos eat today was never supposed to look like this. It wasn't originally crispy, packed with pork, or served with banana ketchup. Because the deeper you go into lumpia's history, the more you realize this isn't just food. It's a story of migration, identity, and how Filipinos transformed outside influence into something completely their own. You know lumpia is serious business when Filipino parties become survival competitions. There's always that one cousin standing near the tray, pretending to help, while secretly eating half the batch. And somehow, the lumpia disappears before the pancit even arrives. But weirdly enough, most Filipinos don't actually know where lumpia came from. Long before fast food existed, long before frozen lumpia filled grocery store freezers, Chinese traders were already arriving in the Philippines. For centuries, merchants from Fujian in southern China traveled throughout Southeast Asia carrying silk, ceramics, spices, and food traditions. One of those traditions was an early version of spring rolls. Simple wrappers, vegetables, light fillings, sometimes fresh, sometimes lightly cooked. But this is where the story starts to change, because some historians would argue something Filipinos may not like hearing. The lumpia most people proudly call traditional Filipino food may have started as immigrant food.
What?
And that hidden truth completely changes how people see the dish. Because when Chinese communities settled in the Philippines, especially near Manila and major coastal trading areas, their food slowly mixed with local Filipino ingredients. And Filipinos didn't just copy the dish, they reinvented it. Because the Philippines had ingredients China didn't. Heart of palm, sweet potatoes, native vegetables, tropical flavors. And over time, the dish adapted to Filipino taste. But the ingredients weren't the most important transformation, because another force was about to reshape Filipino cooking completely: colonization. For more than 300 years, Spain ruled the Philippines, and during that time, Filipino kitchens became cultural crossroads. Chinese cooking techniques mixed with Spanish ingredients, Spanish traditions mixed with local survival cooking. And somewhere in that collision, lumpia evolved into something entirely different. This is where one major change happened. The fillings became richer. Garlic, onions, pork, shrimp, savory seasonings. And eventually, Filipinos started frying lumpia until golden and crispy. That crunch changed everything. Because suddenly, lumpia wasn't just practical food anymore, it became addictive. Portable, affordable, perfect for feeding large groups. But this next part is what truly made lumpia Filipino. It became emotional. Slowly, lumpia stopped being viewed as foreign food. It became birthday food, fiesta food, celebration food, family food. And once a dish becomes tied to memory, it stops feeling borrowed. It becomes part of identity. But believe it or not, that emotional connection only grew stronger over time. Here's something most people never think about. Lumpia takes a ridiculous amount of work to make, and that's exactly why it became special. Think about it. Someone has to chop all the vegetables, season the meat, prepare the wrappers, roll every single piece by hand, then fry them batch after batch. One tray of lumpia can take hours, which makes it even crazier that people inhale an entire tray in about 7 minutes. Which explains why Filipino moms get visibly stressed when someone eats the lumpia before guests arrive, which means every piece carries effort. That's why homemade lumpia feels different from store-bought versions. You can taste the labor behind it. And in many Filipino households, lumpia preparation became a family ritual. Everybody had a job in the kitchen. Meanwhile, children stole pieces from the tray before guests arrived, and without realizing it, families were building memories around the dish. But then, lumpia evolved again, and this next version would completely dominate Filipino parties. Today, when many people hear the word lumpia, they picture one specific version: small, thin, ultra crispy, filled with pork, served with sweet chili sauce or banana ketchup. Lumpiang Shanghai. But here's a strange part. Despite the name, Lumpiang Shanghai isn't actually from Shanghai. The name likely came from the Filipino habit of associating Chinese-inspired dishes with famous Chinese cities or imagery. Over time, the Filipino version became completely unique. Unlike larger spring rolls found elsewhere in Asia, Lumpiang Shanghai became bite-sized and somehow perfectly engineered for Filipino gatherings. Small enough to eat 10 pieces, which is exactly what everybody accidentally does. Then came another major turning point: migration. And this is where lumpia stopped just being food and became something emotional. As millions of Filipinos moved abroad for work and opportunity, lumpia traveled with them to America, Canada, the Middle East, Europe, and suddenly lumpia became more than party food. For overseas Filipinos, it became emotional. For many Filipinos abroad, lumpia became one of the fastest ways to cure homesickness. One bite, and suddenly you're back at a noisy birthday party with plastic chairs and somebody yelling karaoke in the background. A reminder of birthdays back home, of crowded kitchens, of grandparents rolling lumpia by hand. For many Filipino immigrants, serving lumpia wasn't just about feeding guests. It was about preserving identity. And that emotional connection made lumpia even more powerful. But fried lumpia is only one chapter of the story, because many Filipinos forget that there were older versions long before Lumpiang Shanghai took over. Before crispy party lumpia dominated celebrations, other forms already existed throughout the Philippines, and some looked completely different. Take Lumpiang Sariwa. Soft wrapper, fresh vegetables, sweet garlic peanut sauce poured over the top. Instead of crunch, it focused on freshness and texture. Then there's Lumpiang Ubod, made with hearts of palm harvested from coconut and palm trees. In regions rich with coconut farming, this version became deeply connected to local agriculture and local identity. And these older styles reveal something important. Over time, different regions created their own versions of lumpia. Then came one unexpected cousin of lumpia that Filipinos completely embraced: turon, or banana lumpia. Turon follows the same wrapper tradition, but instead of savory fillings, Filipinos wrapped saba bananas and somehow created another icon. This reveals something fascinating about Filipino cuisine. Filipinos are masters of adaptation. A foreign technique enters the country, and over generations, it transforms into something local, something emotional, something unmistakably Filipino. People don't just love lumpia because it tastes good. They love what it represents. At Filipino parties, lumpia means celebration, family, togetherness. You never make just a few pieces, you make trays of it, because lumpia is meant to be shared. And honestly, that says a lot about Filipino culture itself. Filipino food is communal, cooked for gatherings, cooked for family, cooked as an act of love. Because for many Filipinos, feeding people is how affection gets expressed. And maybe that's why lumpia feels so emotional, especially for Filipinos abroad. For many second-generation Filipinos, lumpia becomes the first family recipe passed down to them, the first food that connects them to their roots, the first taste that feels like home. So, yes, lumpia may have started as an immigrant spring roll, but the version Filipinos love today? The crispy trays at birthday parties, the family recipes passed down for generations, the lumpia that disappears before the pancit even gets touched. That version became unmistakably Filipino. Because Filipinos didn't just inherit lumpia, they transformed it. A simple fried roll became tied to childhood memories, noisy family gatherings, homesickness, and identity. That's why lumpia feels different. Because every crispy bite tastes a little like home. So now we want to ask you, what's the best version of lumpia? Lumpiang Shanghai? Lumpiang Sariwa? Turon? Or your family's homemade recipe? Comment below. And what Filipino food should we uncover next?